Good evening, everybody. We're just going to give a minute or so for everyone on Facebook to get on, to get online. I know several of you are trying to find us. We had some technical issues here, so as soon as I start seeing people in, we'll get started with the class. We're on two different platforms here, so that's why we've had some issues. Great to see you, Susan. Great to see you, Rabbi Busco. And we are looking forward to getting started in 1 minute. And here we go. We're going to get started in 1 minute, okay? Okay. Okay, terrific. And now we are ready to go. Okay. Hi, Eliza. It's great to see you. Okay, terrific. Okay. Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Mussar Mondays. It is fantastic to be here with all of you, my friends. I know that the circumstances are really, really challenging for many people, particularly those who are stuck at home with children, and particularly us. We're home with 6 of our children. Our 7th is in Yeshiva in New York, but not only that, one of our children is a lucky hi Elise, is a lucky quarantine candidate. She was in contact a week and a half ago with someone who later on tested positive with coronavirus, so COVID-19. Either way, so before we get started with our regular Mussar learning, I want to share with you a little bit of what's been going through my mind the past couple of days with regards to this incredible situation that we're all in, this pandemic. It's really, really very interesting. So firstly, if you think about what's really happening, it's, my rabbi said, it's God humbling humanity. You think about that you have, how many billions of people in the world, and the world is shut down. I mean, in Houston, they announced tonight that restaurants and bars and all social gatherings are closed. You have synagogues that are closing their doors. You have schools that are closing their doors. You have businesses that are sending home their workers, telling them work from home. It really is remarkable what's going on here. And in a way, we feel like we have everything under control. A week ago, we have technology, we have so much that we are controlling. And then one little microbe, one little infected molecule spreads around the world in a matter of days or weeks. It really is. We have in every city almost in the world. I think there's only one state in the United States that has not reported someone infected with the virus. It really is. It's a frightening thought that we're so vulnerable as human beings that with one little small viral infection, we have such tremendous ramifications. I think it's something to think about. But I think something else that came to my mind in this whole process is, if you think about it, you have everyone is now in their own homes or stuck someplace that they can't travel from, and we're forced to have our own, what we call hitbodedut, a time for us to just introspect, for us to spend time alone, for us to spend time with our family. We're forced to have like a Thanksgiving day every day, right? And it really is a tremendous experience that hopefully we take and utilize wisely. It's not only about entertaining our children, but it's also about really spending quality time with ourselves and thinking about what's going on here. What is really happening? What is transpiring? What is this experience that all of mankind is experiencing? So there's a lot to think about, and there's a lot to talk about. But I think that these two elements, this humility and spending this time that we have alone in our own homes with our own families. My home, as many of you know, hey Elliot, as many of you may know, my home is Baruch Hashem, a very busy one. We have many people come over, and it's really weird. I'll tell you, it's weird that there's nobody walking into our house. It's weird that we don't have visitors coming at all hours of the day. It really is weird. It's something which we're not used to. It's something that we don't see on a regular basis because, with this situation, with my daughter being in quarantine, with so much going on, it's so uncertain. Nobody's going for play dates, and no one's having friends over, and no one's, everyone is just staying in their own place. I think it's something that we need to really take the opportunity to value the family that we have, to enjoy the family that we have, and not be all frustrated. I don't know what to do. I spoke to a friend of mine. I know he said it jokingly. So I said to him, "Are all your kids home from school?" He says, "Yes, and I'm at work." I ran away as fast as I could. Yeah, that's cute. But the truth is, we should really utilize the opportunity of spending time alone, spending time with our family, and just introspect for a little bit to think about who we are, what we're all about, what are we in this world for. And I think ultimately what Hashem is pushing us, He's putting, how much can we see more and more updates on our phone, from WhatsApp and from Facebook and from every other medium, to be inundated with so much happening around us. I mean, at some point we say, okay, I'm just not looking at my phone, right? That's part of it. Imagine that the Almighty is telling us, perhaps, that we need to just shut down a little bit of what's going on, of all the interruptions that are happening around us, of all of the noise that's going on around us, and let's just connect with ourselves, connect with who we really are. So, I was asked this morning. I was interviewed for a newspaper, and they asked me. They said, you're in the business of outreach, or what's known as kiruv, which means to bring Jews closer, and yet this coronavirus is distancing people. We have to stay away from people. So I said, yeah, it's true, but I think that it's not really distancing people, right? Corona. I think what it is connecting ourselves, which really is what kiruv, Jewish outreach is connecting every individual with who they really are, with their potential, with their connection, with their inner connection with the Almighty. And this is really what we're aiming for, is that every Jew find that spark within, find that connection. We're not a set of rituals in Judaism. That's not what we're about. What we really are about is being a people that are in a relationship with the Almighty. And we have mitzvahs to help us with that. We have so many opportunities every day to connect. It's all 613 commandments, reflecting each one of our bones and sinews and all of the elements of our body, because that's the goal of every mitzvah. The goal of every mitzvah is to bring us closer in our relationship with God. Okay, so that's just the introduction, dealing with some of the current events. And now we'll begin with we're in the 11th chapter of Mesilat Yesharim. That's this book right here, Mesilat Yesharim. Way of the Upright. We're using the Art Scroll translation for it, and we're on page 184. So those of you who have this book at home, turn to page 184. So he says like this: the line between legitimate financial efforts and illegitimate business practices. Ve'im tomar, because as we said previously, that there's a very, one of the most difficult challenges that we face in business is the small infractions that we can err on when it comes to finances. Comes with small different things. They're just like small little things that we can make mistakes on, and it's something that we need to be very, 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 very careful about. Okay, so what our sages tell us is that we need to be. He says that, and we ended off last week that the generation of the flood, although they committed many heinous crimes, their decree of punishment was sealed only because of theft, because they stole. Just not being so careful in our honesty is really what the challenge is. What the greatest challenge is. Okay, so let's continue here. Perhaps you will say to yourself, he says, but how is it possible for us not to make efforts in our business dealings to persuade our fellow man regarding the quality of the merchandise that we are selling and its value and its worth? The answer is there is a great distinction between what is permitted and what is forbidden in this matter. For whatever is done to show potential buyers the true quality of the object and its beauty, that effort is indeed good and proper. However, whatever is done to conceal the blemishes of his object is nothing more than financial deceit and is prohibited. Meaning, if a person is hiding that there is a blemish on the item that he's trying to sell, that is considered ona'ah, it is deceit and it's prohibited. V'zeh klal gadol ba'emunat hamasa v'amatan. He says this is a major rule regarding honesty in business dealings. So when a person is selling a product, you're selling a table, and you cover up the area that's blemished of the table, or the chair, and you hide the blemish of the chair, or any object that a person is trying to sell, and the person isn't being 100% honest with the value that the person thinks he's getting with the purchase that he's making, that is called deceit, and it is prohibited by the Torah. It's called ona'ah. Other more obvious pitfalls in the course of doing business, lo omar be'inyan hamidos, and this is not to speak at length. I will not speak at length about the subject of accurate measures and weights. Sheharei beferish kosav behem to'avat Hashem elokecha kol oseh eleh. For it is written explicitly in Deuteronomy 25:16, you shall not have in your pouch a weight, a large one and a small one. A perfect and honest weight shall you have, a perfect and honest measure shall you have, for an abomination of Hashem your God are all who do this, all who act corruptly. So if you have a 1 pound weight that really isn't 1 pound, but it's really 0.75 of a pound, and then you're monitoring to make sure that everything weighs properly, and you adjust the weight, the scale, to show that it's 1 pound. So now you're getting paid for an extra quarter pound on every item that you sell. That's considered theft, and this is what God says is an abomination. And all who do this, this is an act of corruption. And the sages of blessed memory stated, "Kasha ansham shel midos umi anshon shel arayos." The punishment for false measures is more severe than the punishment of illicit relations. Ve'amru bis hasiton, Omer hasiton mekaneach midosav achas l'shoshim yom. The sages also stated that a wholesaler must wipe his measures clean once in 30 days, and a householder once every 12 months. That means you constantly have to, once a month or once a year, re-evaluate your measures to ensure that they are accurate. V'kol kach lama, and why must the merchant devote so much care to ensure that his measures are clean? kedei shelo yachzur b'lo das v'lo ya'onish, so that they should not become diminished unwittingly, and thus, by keeping them clean, he will avoid the divine punishment he will incur if he would unwittingly cheat his customers. So imagine if someone is doing business thinking he has a 1 pound weight or a 10 pound weight, and really it's off by 20% or 10%, and he's overcharging these people on something that he's saying is 1 pound. But really, it's less than 1 pound. That would be a terrible thing. That really would be a terrible thing. And a person will be held accountable for such a thing. So, Kol shekain avon haribis shegadol hu kekofer be'elokei Yisrael chas v'chulil. All the more so must one avoid the sin of lending on interest, which is as severe as denying the authority of God of Israel, heaven forbid. V'chein amru zochornu levroch ala pasuk b'neshech nasan v'tarbis lakach v'chai lo yichyeh. Moreover, the sages of blessed memory said regarding the verse, he gives loans with usury and takes interest. Shall he live? He shall not live. She'eno chai l'tchias hamesim, that the verse means that he shall not be resurrected to live at the time of the resurrection of the dead. Ki hu va'avak shelo meshukatz u'mitov ve'enei Hashem. Because interest, as well as its dust, meaning its particles of interest, that right, is disgusting and abominable in the eyes of Hashem. Ve'eni ro'et tzorach laharuch b'zeh. And I, Ramchal, the author of this book, of the Mesilat Yesharim, I do not see any need to expand on the evils of this sin. Shekvar emaso mutelas al kol ish Yisrael, because its fear is already cast on every Jewish person. So what the Ramchal is telling us here is that we already know, we already understand with our own intellect that it is a grave sin for one to be dishonest, for someone to take interest, etc., of taking advantage of someone else. Now, a couple of things need to be clarified. First is, the Talmud states that when someone passes on from this world, there is a number of questions that are asked. What are those questions? Anybody know those questions? Raise your hand. Okay, no, virtual class here. But what the question? One of the questions that are asked when someone passes on from this world is: did you do your business dealings honestly? Did you deal honestly? And that is a remarkable, frightening question that's asked. That means that a person is going to be held accountable for every mistake they make in their business. Obviously, if it's an error, but if it's intentional, if it's an error, then it could be forgiven unless it's stealing from someone else. Then you're obligated to pay it back. But if it's intentional, even more so, that one is held accountable. One is held accountable, and that's the first question that's being asked by the Almighty when we arrive up in heaven is: did you deal honestly in business? That's how serious it is. And that's why it is something which is so severe that the Almighty, that's one of the, then you have other questions that are being asked. Okay, did you enjoy the world? I wanted you to enjoy. How can it be that I gave you such a beautiful world and you didn't enjoy it? Okay, that's other questions that maybe you can have an answer. But to be dishonest with another person, to steal from another person, that's something that the Almighty really has, as the Ramchal is telling us here, God has little patience for that. It's considered an abomination. Of very few things in the Torah that are considered an abomination, a very severe sin in the eyes of Hashem. Ramchal concludes his discussion on Nikius in monetary matters. We're a little bit out of at the end of the 11th chapter. It's a long chapter still here, very long. Okay, we still have a few weeks to go here before we're done with the chapter of cleanliness of Nikiyut, and this is no chapter 11. This is a long, long chapter. talking a lot about monetary matters. So he says as follows: Amnam kolo shel davar kemo shechem nasamon rabo came nechsholosav rabim. In any event, the sum of the matter is that just as the desire of money is great, so are its potential pitfalls numerous. There's nobody on planet Earth that any of us have ever met, I don't believe, that says, I don't want money. I don't want money. You give them an opportunity, here's $1 million. No, please, I don't want it. Is there anybody in the world who would say that? No, the desire for money is a great desire. So too are the pitfalls. The pitfalls that come with that desire are tremendous. They're absolutely tremendous. In order for a person to be truly cleansed, from them, inyon gadol v'diktuk rav tzorich lo. Great contemplation and considerable care is required for him to be clean completely of this sin, of this desire for money, and to be clear of these pitfalls that come to someone who desires money. V'im nika mimenu, but if he succeeded and becomes completely naki, be completely clean, pristine of any impropriety in this matter, yeda shehigia kfar lemadrega gdola. He should know that he has indeed reached a very lofty level of spirituality and holiness. Ki rabim yischazdu ba'anofim rabim me'anfei hachasidus. For many people have behaved piously in numerous branches of piety. Yet in the matter of despising ill-gotten gain, they have been unable to reach the goal of perfection. Although they excel in many areas of religious observance, their desire of money is too formidable a foe. This rear attainment of cleanliness, of nikios, of pristinely behavior in monetary affairs, is what Zophar, the Naamasite, meant when he said in Job, Im oven biyadcha harchikeyu ve'al tashkein be'alecha avlo ki oz tisa panecha mimum v'hoyisa mutzak v'losira. If there is iniquity in your hand, put it far away, and let not perversion dwell in your tent. For then you would lift your face without blemish, you would be steadfast and never fear. After writing about theft at such length, Ramchal explains why in this chapter he pays so much attention to this and a few other areas of Torah law. V'hine dibarti ad heina miprate mitzvah achas min mitzvahs. Until this point, I have spoken about the details of only one mitzvah of the 613 mitzvahs in the Torah, and that is theft. That it's prohibited to steal. Uchiprate chilukim ele vadayin imtsoim b'chol mitzvah. Similar kinds of detailed subcategories can certainly be found in regard to each and every mitzvah. Amnam eineni maskir ella osam shiragilim rov bnei adam lihikasha b'hem. However, I'm only mentioning those prohibitions in which most people routinely stumble. Meaning that we all, human beings, are challenged with this area. There's nobody who is free of this challenge. Every single human being is challenged with this desire to earn money, desire to have money, and potentially fall into the trap of attaining that money in a negative way, in a way that is dishonest, in a way that is that has in it deceit and cheating methods. So that's why the Ramchal is spending a lot of time on this, because he says that it's very, very rare for a person to not be affected by this desire. So again, it's not a terrible thing for someone to desire money, but it is a terrible thing if that desire pushes them to go do something that is dishonest and the way in which they attain that money is not kosher. He says, now we're going to talk about cleanliness and pristinely behavior when it comes to forbidden relationships. We will speak now about arayos, which is illicit relationships, illicit relations. Shegam he min chamudim. He says, as they too are among the sins that are coveted by people, as mentioned above. Vehem shniyim b'madrego lagezel, and they are only second to theft in terms of their level of challenge. Meaning that just as theft is something that a person, because of their desire for money, falls into the trap of their wanting to acquire that money, and whatever it takes to get it, even if I'll be dishonest. Well, the next step after that, the next sin that a person desires so much, so greatly, is illicit relations. And it's second to theft. As indicated by the statement of the sages of blessed memory that I mentioned above in the end of chapter 10. Rubam begezel, miyutam ba'arayos. Most people stumble with regard to theft, and a minority of them with regard to illicit relationships. Accordingly, if one wishes to be completely cleansed from this sin, gam lo titztorech melacha lo muetes. He too will need no small amount of effort to succeed. Ki ein b'chlal isur gufo shel maaseh bilvad. For the prohibition of illicit relations includes not only the forbidden act itself, ela kol hakorei v'lav, but also anything associated with it. Umikra malahu. This expanded definition of illicit relationships is anchored in an explicit verse in the Torah. Lo sikrvu legalos evre. A man shall not approach, don't even come close, right? Should not approach his close relative to uncover their nakedness, their erva. So, by warning us not to approach a relative to uncover erva, the nakedness, he says the verse forbids behavior that can result in forbidden intimacy, quite apart from the act itself. Thus, the verse should be understood to mean, do not approach them in a manner that can lead to uncovering their nakedness. Right? Many people over the years here at Torch have asked me, Rabbi, don't you think that the laws of yichud, of a man and woman who are not married, to be isolated, to be in a room alone, I think maybe that's a little extreme. I mean, come on, right? Or, Rabbi, touching, men and women touching, that's a little bit extreme. And it's amazing. I'll share with you a couple of perspectives. Firstly, there's no relationship that has ever come about, no illicit relationship that has ever come about without touching. Okay? So if someone limits their ability to touch the opposite gender, whether there's attraction or not attraction is irrelevant. But that one thing leads to the next. That's why we have windows in all of our rooms here at the Torch Center, to give an extra level of accountability and security. But there's another very important thing. I'll tell you a very unscientific study that I did. I was teaching a group of women, young women, and I asked them, we got into a conversation about touching between men and women, and I said, is there anyone here who is comfortable when their husband kisses their best friend? And today it's become a social thing in many, many circles, certainly not in the Torah observance circles, but in other circles, that people, when they meet their friends, they give a little kiss. I said, is there any of you women here that are comfortable or are happy that your husband is kissing your best friend when they meet? And not a single woman said that they were comfortable with it. They said, you know what? Actually, it makes me very uncomfortable. But what can I do? I can't say anything about it because that's become the norm. And it really is a surprising norm that we're finding, that there's a sort of like a leniency. People are okay with it. or at least they say that they're okay with it. And I don't believe that they are okay with it, because that's where things start, and they can end up in terrible places. And Chazal, our sages, tell us about this. Our sages warn us about this time and again. Our sages tell us that even the little finger of a woman can arouse a man and lead to terrible things. If they're not married. If they are married, then there's different rules that apply, and God wants a husband and wife to be together. But people who are not committed in a marital relationship have no business being together and spending time together in an intimate way, and certainly not in a physical way, which will lead to an intimate way. So it's not crazy. The rabbis weren't crazy, and the Torah knows exactly how the nature of mankind works. It starts with one, and that's why the sages warn us. They warn us about not even having excessive conversation with the woman we are not married to. Right? Because conversation may lead to physical contact, may lead to other things, and before you know it, something that is irreversible can happen, and that could be a terrible, terrible thing. So, that's what our sages tell us, and let's continue here on page 189. V'amru zochron lavracha, and our sages further proof that anything associated with an immoral act is prohibited. On this subject, the sages of blessed memory recounted the following divine admonition. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed is He, said to the Jewish people, Al Tomar, do not say to yourself, Hoel v'asur li lihishtamesh bi'isha, since I am forbidden to have relations with the woman, Hareini tovsa ve'ein li oven, if I will at least hold her, and I'm not guilty of sin. Hareini migafafa ve'ein li avon, or I'll hug her and not be guilty of a sin. Ve'o shani noshka ve'ein li avon, or I will just kiss her and I won't be guilty of sin. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in response, the Holy One, blessed is He, said, Kishem she'im nodar Nazir, shelo lishtos yain, just as one who vows to be a Nazir, a Nazirite, and yotze migefen hayayin, such a person who accepted upon themselves the laws of a Nazirite, so they are not allowed to drink wine. But you know what else they're not allowed to touch? Right? They're forbidden to consume fresh grapes, raisins, eno shelcha. So it is regarding a woman that is not your wife. Asur ligaba kol ikar. It is forbidden to touch her at all. And the Midrash concludes that anyone who touches a woman who is not his wife, Mesilat, brings death upon himself, as it is stated, for she has felled many victims. Okay? It is an amazing thing how our sages go right into the Me Too movement, how they understand the nature of how these things work. Anyone who thinks I'm crazy, you might be listening to this at home, and you're sitting there watching this, and you're like, this guy is out of his mind. Okay? So I want you to know something, that I'm not crazy. Okay? I think that our culture and society that we're seeing today, of this whole Me Too movement, is proof that every single word that we just read is accurate. It's proof that every single word of what our sages say, what the Torah says, is accurate, because it always starts with something small. It starts with a little conversation, then it comes to a little hug, then to a kiss, and etc., etc. It can excel very, very rapidly or very, very slowly, but it always started with something small. It never just went all the way to becoming a whole affair. It starts with something small. They're just kidding around and they're joking around. Our sages warn us about that. Our sages tell us, be careful about talking to someone that you're not in a committed marital relationship with, because one thing will lead to the other. And that's the nature of how God created man and woman. Ramchal elaborates on the comparison to a Nazir. Ve'habeit ma niflu'u divrei amamar hazeh. Observe how remarkable the message of this midrashic discourse is. Ki him shelas ha'isur hazeh l'nazir. In that it compares the prohibition of illicit relations to that of the Nazir. Asher afal pi she'ikar isur eino elo shtiyas hayayin. which is unique in that although the primary prohibition upon the Nazir is of the Nazirite is only against drinking wine. Hine asur lo Torah kol ma sheyesh lo shayachos im hayayin. Nevertheless, the Torah also explicitly forbade him to consume anything related to wine. This was a lesson that the Torah taught the sages, regarding how they should create a protective fence around the laws of the Torah. Through the safeguards that they were empowered to create for the protection of the Torah laws. For the sages are to learn from the case of the Nazir. Lesser ba'avor ha'ikar kol gam kol de damile. To prohibit for the sake of safeguarding the prohibition, the primary prohibition, anything that resembles it. V'nimtza she'asisa ha'Torah b'mitzvah zos shel Nazir masher masru l'chachamim sheyasu b'shar kol mitzvahs. It thus emerges that the Torah itself did regarding the mitzvah of Nazir what it delegates to the sages to do regarding all other mitzvahs. In order for us to know that this creation of safeguards for the mitzvahs is the will of the omnipresent. So I want you to understand something. You know, we say many times in our classes, prove it, right? Anyone who's been to our Thinking Talmudist lunch every Friday knows this. We say this ad nauseum, that there's no such thing that the rabbis have the authority to say or teach us anything that isn't already written in the Torah. Every Mishnah is sourced in the Torah. Every Talmud is sourced in the Mishnah, which is sourced in the Torah, and etc., etc. There is no such thing that any sage, any rabbi has any authority to make up rules. Rabbis don't have rights to make up rules. And any rabbi who will tell you that, or any person will tell you that, is ignorant and doesn't know the Torah's rules and regulation about making up laws. There's no such thing that a rabbi can make up a law. So here, what we're seeing is that the rabbis didn't make up a law. They derived what we call in law precedents. Right? You have the same application to different areas, just like you have by a Nazirite. That a Nazirite says, I want to stay away from all these worldly pleasures. The first thing that goes out is wine. Boom. Why? Wine is going to lead to immorality, etc., etc. He lets his hair grow. There's a whole bunch of laws that go with a Nazirite. Our sages tell us, the Torah tells us, not only that, is that now this Nazirite can't drink wine, he can't have any grapes, he can't have raisins, he can't have any product that has grapes or wine in it, because it might lead that he will ultimately end up drinking wine. That's from the Torah. Our sages take that and parallel that with illicit relations. And that is, the Torah tells us, forbids us to be a man with a woman that he's not married to. So now the Torah says, what are the things that are going to lead up to it? Just like the Nazirite is not allowed to drink the wine, yet there are other laws that are prohibited because they will lead up to it. Our sages tell us the exact same thing applies to an illicit relationship. And that is that there are things like touching, like hugging, like kissing, that these are all things that although they're not the actual sin, but they lead up to the sin. Our sages say we need to prohibit that as well, because that is going to be the conduit through which they fall into the trap of this forbidden relationship. So it really is a remarkable thing that the fence that we have to protect us from prohibited actions. The Torah is so brilliant in understanding the nature of mankind. And how does the Torah know this? It's very simple. Because God did create us. God is the manufacturer. God put those desires within us. He says, I know man. I know woman. I created them. I know the way they operate. I know what their desires are. Not that we're evil. We're not evil. We're human. And being that we're human, We know, right? Our sages tell us. We know the nature. You'll fall into a trap if you don't put those protective measures. It's very easy to fall into those traps. You think that, we can think of many different people. You just open up any newspaper, you find another person who has either raped someone or has had an extramarital affair. Today it's all over. Today you almost don't even hear it because it's so commonplace in the world, particularly in Hollywood, where the most moral people in the world are, right? The most ethical people. We know they're the ones who we follow their opinion with whatever they say. So obviously I'm being facetious and sarcasm is spilling over, but it is a very, very challenging reality when we look at the world that we're in today, where you have prime ministers of the world, you have presidents in the world, you've had mayors and governors and senators and congressmen, and sadly people of other authority who've all been alleged to have done terrible things. Where do you think it started from? It didn't just start one day. They said, this is what I want to do. It started with a nice friendship. It started with a nice compliment, with a nice word, and one thing leads to the next, to the next, to the next. Before you know it, it spins out of control. This is what our sages warned us of, and that's what that midrash that we read before is telling us. Someone says, what's the big deal? I'm just touching, I'm just hugging, I'm just kissing. There's nothing wrong. It's not like I'm, doing something which is explicitly prohibited, right? The Torah tells us, and this is what our sages warn us, there's a danger. It's a danger. Because it's very, very, very easy for one thing to lead to the next and to fall into a trap. Val derech zeh, page 191. Val derech zeh, sorry, I think we're still over here on page 190. Masher masal hachachamim sheyasu b'shar kol mitzvahs. What is delegated to the sages to do regarding all the other mitzvahs, Laman das shezer ritzono shel makom, in order for us to know that this creation of safeguards for the mitzvahs is the will of the omnipresent. V'kisha oser lanu echad minei yisurim, so that when He forbids, when the Almighty forbids any one of the other prohibitions in the Torah and does not specify that related acts are also prohibited, Yilamed sasu min hameforosh. The unspecified should be derived from the specified. Lesor kol hakorov lo, so that the sages should proceed to prohibit anything closely related to the explicitly prohibited act. So we see that the rabbis were given that authority expressly by the Torah to make those connections between obvious sins that have obvious connection, obvious similarities. In keeping with this approach, the sages prohibited in this same realm of illicit relations, kol mashuhu mimino shel haznus o hakarov elav, anything that is related to licentiousness or anything close to it, regardless of which bodily sense is involved. Dahainu bein b'maseh, that is, whether it involves action, bein b're'iyah, or sight, bein b'dibur, or speech, bein b'shmiya, or hearing, ve'afilu b'machshava, or even if it involves only a thought, as we shall see. Meaning our sages understood that pathway is not only with touching, not only with action, not only with talking, not only with hearing things, but also with thoughts. And each of these, our sages warn us about the danger of it spinning out of hand. Let's think for a second. What does it mean, re'iyah? Re'iyah is many different facets. Today we're living in a world that has a lot of challenges with online filtering. Why? Because people sadly spend a lot of time, according to research studies that are readily available online, people are spending enormous amounts of time watching things that are inappropriate online. Okay, so that's one thing. But how about when we go to the supermarket or we go to a store and we're in the marketplace or we're on the street and a person looks at someone who they're not married to, right? So that sight is also something which our sages tell us, right? Is that a beneficial thing, right? Is that something which is beneficial, something that's going to help you? It might start with a look, right? But then there's another thing, talking, speech, right? The way in which we talk about, right? One of the things which to me is very disappointing is that it's very, very rare that you will find comedy that is ever clean. Why does it have to always go dirty? Why does it always have to go to be a provocative, sexually oriented joke? Why does it have to go that way? But we see that leads to a callousness, a mockery of things that should be serious, things that should be taken seriously. And our sages warn us about that. Also, listening to things that are inappropriate, right? For example, the halacha tells us that a man shouldn't listen to a woman singing. Why? Because there is a sexual component to it. If you don't believe me, ask any man, right? Ask any man who listens to that, and they'll tell you that is a reality. Our sages recognize this, which is why they say there's a concept called kol isha, which is that there is now. If a person says, Rabbi, and I've had people say this, Rabbi, it's a little crazy, okay? I don't think about thoughts when I hear this and that person sing. That's not what I'm thinking. That might be true, right? But you're not everybody, and you're not the majority of men, and you're not maybe, right? Or it might not be that person, but someone else, yes, that singer, right? So what the sages are telling us is, do we want to be in a world where everything is just okay and we're just crazy, and then God forbid we fall into those traps? Or do we want to be more cautious and maintain ourselves and our holiness and our pristinely soul and our nikiyut, our purity in our service of Hashem? Or do we want to just say everything is okay, everything is fine? Okay? So, and the last is thought, is not thinking thoughts. And the Talmud and the Mishnah and the Talmud go into great lengths about things which lead to thoughts, which lead to prohibited thoughts. Having established that all the senses must be free of moral impropriety, Ramchal elaborates regarding each one, beginning with physical contact. Now I will cite for you proofs regarding all of the secondary forms of illicit relations, things which lead to, right, midivreihem zichron levracham, from the words of our sages of blessed memory. B'maaseh daino hanegia o hachibuk v'keyotze. He says, with regard to the action, right, that is touching, hugging, and the like, kvar nisbor l'malach. Their inappropriateness was already clarified in the midrashic discourse that we mentioned above. And we have no need to elaborate on that. The prohibitions involving sight, with regard to looking at inappropriate matters, the sages of blessed memory said, Yad li yad lo yinakera. When the verse in Proverbs says, from hand to hand he will not be spared from evil, it teaches, Kol hameratze mos miyodo liyodo kidei lihistakel, that anyone who counts out money from his hand into a woman's hand in order to gaze at her, lo yinake medino shel Gehenna, will not be exonerated from the judgment of Gehenna. Ve'amrod, and our sages say further, mipnei ma, this is the Talmud tractate Shabbat. Why did the Jews of that generation, referring to the commanders who led the war against the Midianites in the wilderness, why did they need atonement? Because their eyes feasted on lewdness during their conquest of Midian. Amar Rav Sheshas, the Gemara there continues. Rav Sheshas said, why did the Torah, in describing the atonement gift that the soldiers brought, list their outer jewelry along with the intimate jewelry? To teach you that whoever gazes at the little finger of a woman is like one who gazes in the most private of places. And they said further, the verse states, you shall be aware of any evil thing, any evil thought. Which teaches that a man should not gaze at a beautiful woman even if she is unmarried. Or even at a married woman, and even if she's unattractive. Why? Because our sages tell us that the challenge of humanity doesn't matter whether it's the most attractive person. It doesn't matter, meaning there is a proper way for things to be done. Think of money. There's a proper way for business to be done, and we know that with like that, a person can be dishonest and deceiving and cheat in business. Our sages tell us the same way a person should be happily healthy, be in a healthy marriage, right? But with one little mistake, a person could be in a very terrible state in that regard, and if a person is not careful. Therefore, our sages warn us time and again about the dangers of sexual immorality. Is so common for the Torah to repeat itself again and again and again with caution, telling us that it's not a joke. It's not something which is to be taken lightly. It's something which we're very, very careful about. And I would love to continue this, but we're running out of time, and it's still a long evening for all of you. I hope you enjoyed. I look forward to continuing next week. I hope, hopefully, that everyone will be better, the situation will be better, and we'll be able to have our classroom full again with in-person classes. But for the time being, I apologize that this is the way we have to continue learning. And I want to wish you all well. Stay healthy, stay strong. If you have any questions, you're welcome to email me at awolbe@torchweb.org, AWOLBE@TORCHWEB.org, or you can leave comments here on the Facebook or on the We Learn platform. You're welcome to email me or text me. I don't know what way we can do this here. Hopefully we'll have everything. Today we had some challenges with this, that's why we started a few minutes late, but hopefully we'll be able to combine both systems together and everyone will be together on one platform. So, my dear friends, thank you so much. Have a terrific evening, and continue learning. Don't stop learning. Don't forget, you can go to the Torch website, and the second banner on our website will take you to the new podcast page that we have on our website, where you can subscribe to all of our 9 podcast channels, 4 of which have been featured as _1 worldwide on iTunes under Judaism category, and those are the four of my brothers, my dear brother Rabbi Yaakov. His podcasts are world acclaimed, known across the globe. I was traveling in Israel last year, and people stopping me say, "Are you the Rabbi Wolbe? Are you the Rabbi Wolbe from the podcast?" I said, "No, it's not me. It's my amazing younger brother." So continue listening, continue watching, and looking forward to continue to learn together. Have a magnificent evening, everybody, and shalom from the Torch Center.